This is the Nespresso Vertuo Up. From the product details, it adds fast heating, an extra settings button, coffee creations mode, and a larger water tank. So the big question is whether these changes actually make it feel like a real upgrade over the Vertuo Pop. In this video, I want to show you all the details and a side-by-side comparison with my older Vertuo Pop so we can see what has actually changed. I bought the Vertuo Up about 2 weeks ago and have been using it every day. Let's start with the unboxing. Inside the box, you get 2 manuals, a cup holder, and a starter pack of capsules. The machine comes in 2 colors, and I picked the white one. The sample capsule box is actually quite nice because it includes 12 different flavors and cup sizes, so you can try a few options first and see what suits you before buying more. One of the first things I noticed is that the water tank on the Up is clearly bigger than the one on the Pop, and it can rotate, which makes it easier to fit into different kitchen layouts and tighter spaces. The cup holder has 3 height positions, which is useful for different cup sizes. The capsule container is also larger than before, and the bottom section can collect leftover water as well. The Vertuo Up still has that simple Nespresso look. The whole machine is very minimal, and the controls are kept easy with just 2 buttons. When you open the lever from the top, you can see the capsule slot and a separate settings button, which is something the Pop does not have. As for the build, the drip tray cover, cup holder, and capsule lever are metal, while most of the rest of the machine is plastic. On my unit, the fit and finish looks just okay, and some of the gaps are not perfectly aligned. Maybe not every machine is like this. It does feel quite plastic, but not weak or flimsy. Now let's look at the settings. The Up adds a setting button, which makes things a bit easier to understand than the Pop. If you press and hold it for 3 seconds, the brew button changes color to show different functions. Blue is for rinsing cycle, yellow is for emptying the pipe, red is for descaling, and then this is for resetting the customized volume. After that, there should also be a Wi-Fi connectivity setting, but my machine does not have that. App connection is not supported in every region. You can press and hold the setting and the brew button together for 5 seconds to reset the whole machine back to factory settings. All the lights will flash. I can see the Wi-Fi indicator, but I just can't use it. For first use, fill the water tank, run a rinsing cycle first. That process takes around 3 minutes, and after that, the machine is ready to brew. So let's make some coffee. Vertuo capsules are not compatible with the original ones because the machine reads the barcode around the edge of each capsule and automatically chooses the right brewing settings and coffee volume for that pod. Open the lever, drop the capsule in, then close the lever firmly. After that, press the brew button once and extraction starts. Here is the full brewing process, so you can also hear the actual noise level and get a sense of how long it takes. The coffee still has that classic Vertuo style. You get a thick layer of foam on top, but that mainly comes from the high-speed spinning, creating lots of tiny bubbles. So it is different from the crema you get from a traditional espresso machine that uses pressure extraction. A lot of people compare capsule coffee with espresso, but I honestly think they are similar in some ways while still being quite different. Capsule coffee is usually a bit lighter in strength and concentration, but the coffee itself can still have good aroma and flavor. It's one of the easier ways to make coffee. The coffee came out hot, around 67 degrees. I also tested it with a larger capsule size, and the coffee reached about 72 degrees Celsius in my temperature check. So in terms of serving temperature, it is actually quite hot. If you do not want to spend time figuring out grind size and brewing details, and you just want to make a cup of coffee quickly before heading out, this kind of machine still makes a lot of sense. And there are plenty of capsule options to choose from. You can get consistent coffee each time without hassles. Once brewing is done, you open the lever and the used capsule drops automatically into the container. Now let's compare the Vertuo Up and the Vertuo Pop. The first big difference is heat up time. The Up is ready in just a few seconds, while the Pop usually takes close to a minute. For an espresso machine, where convenience and speed are a big part of the appeal, that is a very useful upgrade. The Up's water tank is about twice the size of the Pop's, and still a bit bigger than the Pop Plus, so you don't need to refill it as often when making larger coffees. The Pop looks shorter at first glance, but once you change the angle of the Up's water tank, the Up can actually take up less depth. That makes it more practical on a narrow countertop. The Up also looks just a little slimmer overall. Another obvious difference is how the capsule is loaded. Earlier Vertuo machines used a horizontal loading direction, while the Up uses a vertical drop in design. The brewing system is still based on Nespresso's centrifugal extraction method, but the loading experience feels different. Opening and closing the lid is also easier on the Up. I can open it and close it with one hand quite easily. On the Pop, opening is fine, but closing often takes more effort, and sometimes I end up using both hands. I also brewed the same capsule on both machines at the same time to see if there was any real difference. The clearance under the spout is still a bit better on the Up, which gives you more room for cups. The Vertuo Pop is obviously louder than the Up when it's running. In my side-by-side test, the Pop started extracting earlier. By the time the Pop was about halfway through the brew, the Up had just started flowing. You can also see a difference in the foam. The Pop seemed to produce more foam, and for a moment, it looked like almost half the cup was foam. But after brewing finished, the foam on the Pop faded a bit faster, while the foam on the Up looked finer and lasted longer. As for the taste, using the same capsule, the flavor was basically the same on both machines. If anything, the Up tasted just a little lighter. I also tried a few different capsules, and while the foam can behave a little differently depending on the pod, the overall flavor profile stays very close between the two machines. Both machines are supposed to drop the used capsule into the container automatically when you open the lever. On my Pop, something wrong with the little claw inside, and I have not figured out how to fix it. The Pop's container can hold around 5 or 6 used capsules. The Up is clearly bigger here. 10 capsules is not a problem. The control system is another area where I think the Up is easier. The Pop has only one button, which sounds simple, but in practice it can actually be confusing because different functions depend on different combinations of short presses and long presses. The Up still looks minimal, but the added settings button makes the functions more straightforward. There is also a new coffee creations mode on the Up for milk-based drinks or iced drinks, and Nespresso describes it as a more concentrated extraction for those recipes. In simple terms, the machine gives you less liquid from the same capsule, so the coffee comes out stronger and stands up better to milk or ice. I tried it with one of their newer coconut vanilla capsules. Normally, this is a 230 milliliter coffee, but in coffee creations mode, it gives you a much smaller and more concentrated cup. All you need to do first is prepare a glass of ice water. Then press the coffee creations button, and after that, press the brew button to start. Instead of a full mug, you get roughly half a cup, and once it hits the ice, the foam is naturally not as thick. Even though this is a flavored coffee, I have to say it smells great and tastes really good. The whole room fills with coconut and vanilla aroma, and this is honestly one capsule I would recommend. Actually, the Pop also has a concentration mode. This is a large capsule, but if you double tap the brew button, it gives you a more concentrated extraction, and it seems to work basically the same way as the Up's coffee creations mode. The main difference is that on the Up, you get a dedicated button, while on the Pop, it is hidden behind a double tap. And honestly, I did not know about this feature before either. That is exactly why having only one button on the Pop can sometimes feel a little confusing. Cleaning is pretty simple overall. But because of the vertical capsule loading design, it does seem like there can be a bit more leftover water inside compared with the Pop, so I find myself emptying the water more often. To clean it, just empty the used capsule container, rinse the removable parts, and wipe everything dry. The bottom area is still fairly easy to reach and clean. One thing I really like is the quick rinsing feature. On the Pop, if there is no capsule inside and you press the brew button, it just flashes red. You also cannot do a quick rinse easily, and running a full rinse cycle takes more time. On the Up, you can do a short rinse without inserting a capsule. I think that is a very useful change. When I ran the quick rinse, I could still see some coffee color in the water, which tells you there is still some residue left inside the machine after brewing. And here's the thing, if that coffee residue is left there for a long time, it can dry out and stick to the brewing parts. On my Vertuo Pop, that kind of built-up coffee residue can jam the spinning brew head or cause the red flashing light issue. I made a video before about how to fix that red light problem, and it seems like a lot of people have run into the same issue. So I think this quick rinse could actually be a very practical way to help prevent that kind of problem. If you really want to clean the brewing area more deeply, you can remove the container and reach the brew section from underneath. But compared with the Pop, it does not seem quite as easy to access for deep cleaning. I've been using it for about 2 weeks, and the day-to-day experience has actually been quite good. The fast heat up is probably the most useful upgrade for me, but I still want to see how it holds up over a longer period. At the same time, the Vertuo Up costs about twice as much as the Pop, and I do think it feels a bit expensive for what you are getting. After all, the coffee quality itself does not feel dramatically different to me. Even though I have a lot of coffee machines at home, I still use Nespresso from time to time, especially when I am in a hurry. As one of many ways to make coffee, a capsule machine still does a very good job when you want something quick, simple, and consistent. I hope this video gives you a better look at what the Vertuo Up changes and what it can do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.